morning, guitar classes. We are continuing our conversation on musical symbols and the things that we need to know before the guitars are distributed and in our hands and ready to be played. So we previously were looking at page 5 of our class text, where we learned that the staff is where music lives. The treble clef is the symbol that defines its range, and we know that when we see that symbol, the treble clef, that this is music that can be played by the guitar. We saw that the lines get the letters E, G, B, D, F, and each one of those letters, as it goes higher, the sound it makes goes higher. E, G, B, D, and F. And then the spaces also had names from bottom to top. As they go from low to high, visually the sound will go from low to high as well. We had F, A, C, and E. Then we briefly talked about time signature, remembering that the two numbers that appear on top of each other after the treble clef is called a time signature, and it tells us how much time we are measuring in terms of the feel of music. And in summary, the number on the top is telling us how many counts we are measuring, and the bottom number is telling us what kind of note we are counting. So we're counting 4 of something. This bottom 4 here represents a quarter notes because the bottom number really is any fraction under 1. So 1 under 4 is a quarter, so we're measuring 4 quarters. And so when we hear 4 quarters, like we did with the metronome, it would be measuring the count of these 4 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So each one of those clicks represents a quarter note. Now, without having counted to 4, but just listening to the sound of that click, it is an abstract concept. There's nothing that has been defined. So in order for the clicking to have meaning, we have to define what we're counting, and that's what the time signature is. So I'm deciding that each one of these clicks represents a quarter note. That's the bottom 4. And I'm going to count 4 of them before I start counting again over and over again. So by having a time signature now, I can define the feel of the music that is going to be played. We then talked about whole notes, a whole note being 4 counts. So, for example, if I was to define our time signature as 4/4, 2, 3, 4. Here's a whole note. 2, 3, 4. Notice that I let the sound ring for 4 counts. Again, 1, 2. Here it is. 2, 3, 4. Now, a half note looks like a whole note, but it has a stem connected to it, we said. And that's going to cut the count in half. So now a half note is worth 2 counts. So a half note would sound like this. Here it is. 2. Half the amount of time, right? And if we color in that note, so now we have a note head colored in with a stem, we call that a quarter note, and it gets each one of these counts. And so at 60 beats per minute, we are listening to the sound of a second. And now we counted them over here. And what we want to talk about today is what these symbols that I'm highlighting now represent. As we see back on page 5 of the book, the lines that come vertically in between the staff we call bar lines. What those bar lines are doing are drawing the demarcation lines between the measures, and that's the space in between the bar lines. So that's what's visually showing us when the count of a measure begins again. And then you notice this one at the very end, both here in the book class text and here in this. We call this a double bar, also known as an end bar. That tells us when the music is over. So when you listen to music, so you're listening to one of your favorite songs, and it ends, visually somewhere, a musician was reading an end bar. The song is done. So today we learned about bar lines, measures, and the end bar, how those work with our time signature and whole notes, half notes, and quarter notes. I'm going to go ahead and play this exercise for us. 2, here it is. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, because the guitars haven't been distributed yet, we don't have a guitar, what we're going to do is start by practicing clapping the rhythm. Clapping the rhythm so that we can internalize for ourselves a sense of time. So I'm going to clap this same exact exercise that I wrote here. 2, here I go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so before we get into the specific playing techniques of the book, I do want us to look forward to page 6 and see that we do have some exercise here with different kinds of notes. So if I look at exercise 1, I see that I have several notes with no stems and not colored in. I can remember from my picture over here that those are whole notes, which means it's going to get struck once, but we're going to listen for 4. So if I were to clap exercise 1, it would look and sound something like this. 2, here it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next note. 2, 3. Next note. 2, 3. Next note. 2, 3. Next note. 2, 3, 4. And then it's done. Now I know there's lots of other symbols here and lots of information going on up here, and we'll begin talking about those soon once the guitars are distributed. For now, let's look again at exercise 2. This time, we see similar note head style as exercise 1, but this time with stems. And the last one looks just the same as the first exercise, no stems. So what we have here is a combination of several half notes and an exercise ending with a whole note. So if I were to clap exercise 2, it would sound like this. 2, here it is. 2, 4. 2, 4. 2, 4. 2, 4. 2, 3, 4. Moving on to exercise 3, we can also see the counts written underneath. This time I see what looked like a half note, but the note head is colored in. Until we get to the very end, there's one on count 3 that is not colored in, but it does have a stem. So in this exercise, we have a combination of quarter notes and a half note. Again, the rest of these symbols we'll talk about soon when the guitars are distributed. Let's take a listen to what exercise 3 would sound like, clapping the rhythm to internalize it. 1, 2, here it is. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So your assignment is going to be to practice clapping exercises 1, 2, and 3, exactly as I did. You can rewind this video and clap along with me throughout the demonstration.